let's jump in. So Raj, how are you? How are things?
I'm good, John. Hi, everyone. Welcome. John and I were just talking, weren't we, around how we love these sessions because it's just an energy boost. But I was also talking about some mindfulness. I'll just show the viewers my little Zen garden that I like to kind of play with
It's
in
lovely.
between calls and things, just to stop and breathe for a moment. So sometimes I feel I don't get opportunity for as much creativity as I would like. So it helps me to get into that creative space. What about you, John? What do you do to just stop or pause?
Play chess. Yeah, it's lovely. Uh, I'm okay. I'm not terrible. I'm not great, but it's definitely a mind cleanse. Uh, I think that, yeah, I have lots of strategies, but that's my main go-to.
Okay. I like that. I got lots of questions, but I guess I better ask you the questions that our listeners have sent us. And I think you're going to love these today, John,
Let's do it. Let's do it.
because they are connected to agency and hope theory. And I know that John has great perspectives on these. So I'm going to start with question one. And the question is, I hear coaches use the word agency a lot. What is agency?
So the word agency comes from a Latin word agere, which means to do or to act. We get the word act from agency. So agency essentially is the ability for someone to act or take action.
And how does that fit in kind of learning and being in coaching?
Right. So, okay, so we live on a dead end street, but there's not really great signage. And every now and then, cars will come through, thinking it's a road, but it's not. It's more like just a driveway. And there's another house that lives on the other side. So it looks like the road continues past our house, but it really doesn't. So they do, they turn around in our neighbor's driveway and they go back out. Fine, right? But when you have little ones, this is a terrifying proposition because cars just zoom by and they don't know. So, putting this into a coaching, if we ever create the metaphor for coaching, there's this idea that okay, so we are victims of this process. We There's not much we can do. We talk about putting up speed bumps, but the neighbors don't want to. We're trying to do these things, and we ask ourselves, okay, so where's our agency? Where is our ability to what can we control? And well, what we can control is we could put up gates, which we did. We put up a gate in the front, gate in the back, another gate in the back. So now we have a 2 gate system. It feels like we have a small mini fortress of like being containment apparatus. And so we have these apparatus set up. What it does though is so that's a demonstration of agency. That's a demonstration of what are the actions that I can take to make this thing better. Right. So then the question is, well, how does that affect our being? So now when someone zooms past our house, we don't have that same, oh my goodness, where are all the beings reaction? It's okay. Thank goodness we have the gates. Thank goodness we have this thing set up. And then once that happens, it really does affect your like mental emotional space. The beingness of it shifts away from disempowered, anxious parent to empowered, calmer person. And so when you're asking yourself, when a client really steps up into agency, when they look at their agency, what we do affects who we are, and who we are affects what we do. It's all connected. And what's one of the great things about hope theory is that it helps us look at those two things. It helps us look at both of those things and ask ourselves the question, what are the action steps that need to be taken so I can step into my empowered self? And then my empowered being self, what are those action steps that can, what are the action steps that need to be taken from that perspective? It goes both ways. It's useful to look at both of these things separately and then put them back together. The learning that comes from that's you ask yourself the question, so what did we learn from that situation and how can we apply it in other places? That's a really helpful guideline to learning and how it fits into all of this stuff.
And it seems so obvious to me now because I'm in the coaching world and I'm a coach and had coaching. Yeah, I think about when I first discovered that I have my own agency. I mean, I think being brought up or cultural aspects or just, as I said, sometimes it feels so obvious now, but just thinking that things were fixed or that I couldn't get to choose or I didn't really control things. And I think about, and I think we've talked about this before, education system or schools, right, or, you know, this thought around a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. How does agency thinking support that view?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we're speaking to especially cultural and societal, I don't know what the term, structures. You know, when you start looking at structural racism and bias and that, and something that, you know, Moise and I fall back to when necessary is this idea of brushing off negativity or messed upness and not allowing it to affect the rest of the day. Being like, you know what, they win if we have to talk about this a lot or process. I mean, there's some of that goes on, but if you have to process that and it takes over the day or it takes over even an hour, it's finding ways to I guess process sufficiently and effectively, and then just move on and not put ourselves in those positions. So I think what does get developed, and like the benefit of this is, I feel like what gets developed is this idea of anti-fragility, where there gets developed a resourcefulness, a deep sense of like call it like a long sigh, and then you move on with the rest of the things. Yeah. So I think, you know, it's hard. It's not easy. But if we can get through it, then I think it definitely helps with, builds resilience.
And what about hope theory? So where does agency fit in with hope theory?
Yeah, I mean, agency is, yeah, I mean, it's the doingness of, you know, it's also looking at, it's that interaction between learning and being, right? And then you're also looking at pathways as well. So your agency is your ability to take the pathway. It's your ability to do the things that need to get done. And the pathway is the action steps, the strategies, the structures in place that you have in order to accomplish that, the systems. And thinking about it that way, it's really powerful, because agency can also go into, okay, so what do I need to learn in order to do the things that I need to get done? That's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So I think from a coaching standpoint, I love the structure of hope theory. I feel like it fits almost exactly with the structure that, like, learn, be, do, that I used to, you know, really lean into as an instructor and as a coach, because it just made sense. And so just backing up just a little bit, whenever you're doing a coaching session and you're working with someone, sometimes coaches will get into habits where they'll ask the same kind of questions, or they'll have like, I don't know, call it like question rut, where, you get used to it. You know, these questions work. You're listening to people, but you have the same kind of questions in the same kind of situations. One of the ways to get out of that, or if you're asking yourself, how can I get to the next level as a coach? Am I asking a question around being, like around my client's character, around my client's, character traits, values, energy, emotion? Or am I asking questions around action steps a lot? Like, what's the next step on this? What systems have they tried? What pathways have they chosen? What strategies are they employing? Those are more learning-based questions, and then, those are more doing-based questions. Learning-based questions are more like, what are you learning about yourself? What's working right now in the system, and how can you apply that to other places? So having that structure, learn, be, do, is really helpful thinking to get out of the question rut. As a coach, hope theory, when I found it, felt like this eureka moment, because it feels like they break it out this way, where agency equals being, pathways equals doing, learning in some ways, and then the feedback can be learning. Like, oh my goodness, here it is. Positive psychology provides, and we have a theoretical structure and framework for this kind of coaching, which I now know. I know what our learning philosophy is. Because we get this question sometimes. I know where it comes from. I think it's kind of fun to think about it. And our learning philosophy is teleological.
I like that word.
It's purpose-based. It's asking, what's the purpose of this? It's not ontological. It's not looking at, the idea of like the being or essence and that kind of stuff, which is cool, but it's not. It's asking ourselves a question, Coach Training EDU, what we do is we ask ourselves, how do you want to use this? How do you want to use even negativity? That's not a question that is a courageous question. That is a question that assumes greatness, and a question that assumes that people have a lot of this inner strength and resilience, which isn't always, don't always have to be in this space, but to access it, to get to this space, that's really powerful. And so what we do as an organization is teleological. It's asking ourselves, what's the purpose? How can we use this? Yeah.
How can we use this? What's the purpose?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you think that impacts action?
Well, I think people who have a clearly defined purpose take more consistent and take bolder action steps. I know that's from my own life, that when I had clearly defined, once I clearly defined the purpose of what I was trying to do with, augmenting education with coaching skills, and then to bring that in, learning what's happening in the executive and wellness worlds too, it clarified a lot. And there's power in clarity. It clarifies mental emotional space. It enables you to act more clearly. Yeah, more boldly. I'd make phone calls I never would make. Talk to superintendents. If you're in the education space, you want to break into a school, talk to the superintendents. They're the ones who, oddly enough, I found have space in their calendars for these kind of conversations, these global conversations, these conversations that can change the whole culture of a school. These are the things that they're interested in. And that's the kind of boldness you get when you have a clear purpose and you're not doing it for your own sake, but you're doing it for the sake of humanity. People feel it. There's a compellingness to it. And then there's also a trust that if you do this consistently, you'll be taken care of too. So it goes hand in hand.
Boldness, clarity, courage. For me, I probably add fulfillment as well.
Right.
Because then when I have that clarity, it's also good for me to check in. Am I aimlessly just adding actions because I've had this pattern that I've attempted to break, around achievement or perfection, or this is what it should be looking like in terms of societal expectations? Or like, what is the purpose for me? Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Keep that top of mind. Borrowed insight. Thanks, John.
Teleological. It was fun to find the word. Like, oh, what is it we do? Oh yeah, that's it. That's the idea.
How did you discover that word? Teleological.
It's Greek. It was cool. Yeah. I was actually looking into. I was like trying to think about it because we get the question every now and then. It's the same word: telephone, telescope, long distance. What's the end in mind? I think I Googled like, what's the end in Greek, and tele came up. I'm like, oh yeah, of course. So, it's purpose-based stuff. And there's a deep philosophical tradition in teleology. But try to say a couple words too. The big ones. I don't know. Today's been a weird day with pronunciation of words. What are you going to do?
Thanks, John.
Preposterous. Okay. I was trying to say preposterous earlier today.
Say it again.
Preposterous.
I'm not going to attempt it right
Try
now.
it.
I've still got teleological in my mind. I can't say.
Right? It's a weird one. It's preposterous.
Preposterous. There we go.
Preposterous. Got it.
Okay. So next question, John. I know he's going to probably throw in some other words. What is the difference between client agenda and client agency?
Right. So the agenda, it comes from the same word, age, right? Agere. So it's the same root. The agenda are literally the things that ought to be done. So it's the to-do list. And the interaction between the to-do list and the agency is the person doing the to-do list. That's the main difference. In looking at client agenda, if we're going with that's not a real word. Its agenda is already plural. My 15-year-old, my 15 and 12-year-old are both taking Latin, which is deeply fulfilling to me. And anyway, so there's something around like being able to speak conversational Latin. There's some people in the world who do it. I got close to it when I was teaching high school, but never really made the commitment to the full-time loop that it required for obvious reasons. But it's fun. Anyway, agenda is already, we'll go with agendas. So whenever a client creates an agenda for a session, it's the way I view it as a coach is it's a starting point. It's a foundation for the rest of the course. I mean, imagine you in the executive coaching world, Raj. I imagine this comes up all the time when you're working with executives or people in the business world. I imagine they love having clearly defined session agendas. How do you find, so in your work as executive coach, how do you find that you use client agendas?
Well, to me, I love structure. As an assessor, as I'm telling people, befriend the structure and then you can play with it once you've befriended it. But in the executive world, it helps, that clarity really helps. And, it's very important to me when we design the alliance, I talk through not just what coaching is or what coaching isn't, let's talk through what a coaching session is going to look like. And I said, and because I get the question before anyone signed up for coaching, well, how will we work together? How will the session work? What kind of outcomes can I expect? I get a lot of people who are very goal focused and doers and result focused. So I find that the clients that I work with really enjoy and like the fact that, there is exploration in the middle of it. Once they get used to it, at first it can be just explaining it can sound a bit unusual to people who aren't used to that process. And I'll say in the Design the Alliance, it's purposeful. It is. There we go. There is a method to the madness. It is purposeful. And I share, I'm here to facilitate your growth. I am here like a guide with those questions, although I'm not leading you or advising you. I am walking alongside you with this torch and, kind of highlighting anything that, might trip you up or you don't want to fall off the end of the cliff or like whatever it is. I'm here to facilitate that. So I'm really clear in that Design the Alliance that this is how it's going to work. And I actually often ask the same question when I'm working with execs. What's on your agenda today?
Yeah. It's a grounding question. It's a starting question. I find that it's helpful just to have an answer to that question. It doesn't have to be the answer because coaching sessions will suss out whatever needs to be addressed anyway. So, I mean, we can get into like deeper agendas and long-term, short-term. There's a lot that you can work with in this space. Yeah. We'll leave it at that for now.
So, and everyone listening, you see, coaching's fun. We have lots of fun all the time, don't we, John?
It is fun. It's fulfilling work. I feel like it's work. It's deep work. It's work that gets to. It's a conversation. What I really appreciate most about coaching is I feel like there are some parameters that are set, and one of the things that makes it work the best is this perspective that coaches consciously cultivate around believing in their client's brilliance. And there's something deeply fulfilling in having a conversation when you're listening through that perspective of somebody and you're asking questions that are curious, that help people break new ground, have new insights with that perspective. Like, someone listening to you like that. Yeah, it's what got me into the field was as a client. My experience as a client in that space. It kept me going when I was really terrible as a coach, but I know how good it can be as a client, so I got to keep going on this. And that's the deal too. Just persistence pays off. Mm-hmm. If you want to get better at something, you just keep doing it. So that's the main idea.
What about coaches who want to kind of continue to build their own muscles around understanding agency and hope theory? What would you recommend?
Whew. I don't know if I would focus too much on trying to implement hope theory or trying to get to agency. I really think that in real time, learn, be, do is a really helpful, quick, easy radar to have when you're listening. I've listened to some coaching sessions where a coach might break down like, okay, this is what's like from let's say neuroscience. This is what this looks like. You're probably in this, there might be this hormone or cortisol, or this might be the thought pattern or that kind of stuff. That to me feels like it's nice as a coach. It's good to be informed. It's good to know that. It's good to see that, but to me it's not really central to coaching. That definitely veers more into the therapy realm, psychology realm. It's as a coach, our job is to be informed, but to stay in curiosity. And that's our job. We're like professional curiosity people. And that would be my recommendation is I really wouldn't try to go beyond, in real time, learn, be, do. If you want to record and analyze your sessions and think about, okay, did I address agency? Did I address pathways? How did I do with feedback? Did I do with goals? That like after, yes, that's really useful. But in real time, no. I don't think it's useful to try to analyze too much hope theory in real time coaching.
Learn, be, do. So, I mean, it's simple, three things, isn't it? I mean, it's simple, it's effective.
Yep.
And I think, I would recommend anyone who's listening, who's interested in hope theory and agency and coaching to sign up for a program. So that's how you're going to grow and learn more. That would be my suggestion.
There's some books. Snyder has some books, some studies. It's fascinating reading. I find it fascinating because it feels like what they are doing is they're trying to implement some really basic coaching principles to people who've never even heard of coaching or have never experienced it. So a lot of it to me reads like almost like a primer to the coaching process from a positive psychology standpoint. And then there's some really deep insights that positive psychology provides that I find really useful to coaching in the sense of, separating agency and pathways. That makes sense. And when you see it, what's amazing to me seeing it from a coaching perspective is that I know a theory really is working when the theory itself provides even more clarity to something that you feel like you already knew. And oh my goodness, I'm thankful for it. I really am. It's a big deal to get into these spaces that you feel like, something that you feel from experience works, to see it so well mapped out and then to go deeper into it and feel like the two inform each other. I mean, this is the space that we've been playing with in the last 5 years.
Yeah. And it makes me think of when I'm doing cohorts or group coaching with execs as well. You know, we have a lot of people who are doers and achievers, and they're kind of looking at doing leadership. And we attempt to shift that and say we're looking at being a leader. And the other thing is, I mean, we all know what we need to do around things. You know I need to get up and work out and eat better and all of those kinds of things. But I think when we look at the learning and being, it helps us to understand why we're not doing it, or what's getting in the way, or what's happening with motivation.
Right, of course.
We're on time, John.
We are. It's fun. I've had back-to-back things since, like, I don't know, 7 o'clock this morning. So it's been 5 hours of, I don't know, lots of Zooming today. But I feel like our world is, I don't know, I feel really, I know there's a lot going on. But what I see in the coaching world and when just hearing from people, it's not every day, but I feel this optimistic. But today I'm feeling pretty optimistic for humanity, with a few major caveats. But generally, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. And I think a lot of it too is just being in the coaching world. Feel like there's definitely a deep fulfillment when you're working with clients or people and you're seeing them make some major action steps. I've experienced that today a little bit, and wow, I'm feeling pretty psyched up for life right now.
It's exciting. And there's a sprinkling of hope for everyone as we close out. Good to see you, John. Good to see everyone.
Raj. Thank you. Thank you, everyone listening. This has been another Q&A session. Appreciate you all. See you soon.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.